Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. They looking for a film that has big time camp. What B-movie will be the ultimate champ? You might think they crazy, might think they disease, but they watch all the shot to find the best of the beats. It's Stan, Jim, Jack, and Nick who watch till it's finished. But their love for these movies can be diminished. And maybe the film's plot has no rhyme or reason, but that's part of the jam. Oh, and breath of the season. It's the low-budget film that it is most true. They find in the flick that's most boogaloo. Kung Fu, electric boogaloo. Ooh, ooh, electric boogaloo. Kung Fu, electric boogaloo. Ooh, ooh, electric boogaloo.
Gentlemen, start your engines! This time we got a race with the devil. We are moving along in Simply the BS. This is season 8 of the Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo. We are talking about doing some films directed by some of the great B-movie directors. This time it's Jack Starr directing Race with the Devil. I am your host, 8th Dan Stanadu. Thanks for listening. I am joined today by my good friends, and I got Nick Boxer.
Yabba dabba ding dong.
Ding dong.
And greetings and salutations.
Of course, well that's as we usually know you. Jack Hall.
I tried to change it up and then chickened out.
Just couldn't go all the way. I get
It was the ding dong. It just fell. It didn't work.
Jack, how you doing?
Well, I'm all right. How are you? You sounded like at the end of your introduction there a little out of breath.
Well, I've been racing with the devil. Come on.
All right.
How could I not be? All right, and then we got James Cotta.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm now I'm thrilled to report that the show is now being offered in 4-channel stereo.
4-channel stereo, yeah. It's even better if you have 2 speakers.
That's right.
All right. Well, we got to talk about Peter Fonda. We got to talk about Warren Oates. We got to talk Race with the Devil. Nick, tell us all about Race with the Devil.
All right. First off, the first thing you have to know about this movie is ignore the title. Second thing you need to know is I'm loving this season because the first 2 movies have been actually not hard to summarize. In this one, Warren Oates and Peter Fonda take their wives camping. They witness some sort of satanic ritual where a girl is killed. And it turns out the Satanists don't like it, so they chase them. That's what happens.
That's what
Not
happened.
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's pretty much.
Wow,
right?
that's 2 episodes in a row where we're all at the end of Nick's summary like, yeah, you're not wrong with that. Wow,
Yeah, that's what happens. That was my reading.
I'm liking it.
I don't know what to say now.
I think the first thing is they do kind of set up this bit of paranoia feel for most of the third act where you're not actually sure if the Satanists are following them or if just they've had a run of bad luck or if they're being paranoid and people are just, it's Texas and people are weird. Shout out to everyone in Texas. But they do kind of set up this thing that Laura Parker's character is paranoid. She thinks everyone's staring at her. So are they actually being followed or is it paranoia? And of course, I mean, by the last 15 minutes, it is, they've been followed.
Yeah. It's definitely not paranoia.
There's a window there where there's a window with ambiguity. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, it's and I do think that's one of the things that I really like about the movie is there is that sense throughout the whole thing where you can just where it's like you get a little bit of down moment, but then it's like you ramp up the paranoia, and that kind of works for me.
There's such a tonal left turn about 2/3 of the way through this movie, like the second to third act, switch.
As soon as the dog turns up as not living, I think it just switches right there.
Yeah, you get the dead dog, and then immediately you got snakes on the RV. And it because it's funny that I watched about almost an hour of this movie, and my wife Lacey asked me how it was going. And I'm like, it's a pretty enjoyable movie. It's it's not terribly boogaloo. It's it's just a nice little flick. It's nice to see Peter Fonda in something. I've never seen a lot of Warren Oates work. This is a little more featured than some of the stuff I've seen him in, like Stripes and Wild Bunch and stuff. But he's he's got a kind of meatier role, and I'm like, it's pretty good. And then I came back, I paused it there, and then I come back, and immediately the dog dies, and snakes are jumping out all over the place, and there's
cars exploding and
explode.
Racing, and oh yeah.
Yeah, it's this sudden left turn into Boogaloo Town that that I was not anticipating.
Yeah, there's some Boogaloo moments early before that, but for most of this movie, the problem with this movie is, especially the first, it's actually 17 minutes. It's 17 minutes 17 when they see the satanic ritual. And that's definitely got some Boogaloo elements to it, plenty, as does the chase afterwards. But at that point, you're like, oh man, you just want anything to happen.
Yes.
They do a lot. Yeah, the most dramatic thing that happens in the second act of this film is that they want to borrow a book from the library and they're not allowed, so they steal it.
Well,
that's the high drama of that section.
I thought the satanic, the chase right after the satanic thing was plenty Boogaloo and very exciting. But yeah, up until there, it's like them. It's a bunch of guys racing around on motorcycles. It's got to be 8 minutes worth of shots of that, and you're just and then after the chase, then you're right. Then there's a long time before you start to wonder again. You're like, is anything going to happen again? And luckily, it does. But and by the way, I'd like to say, just so everybody knows, that dog. Don't worry, they didn't actually kill the dog. Just drugged it. Yes, that was the real dog. They drugged it.
Oh, that's the best. That's great.
Better than using a special effect.
Yeah.
No, they did not use a special effect. They drugged the dog so it was passed out and then hung it up.
Good.
1975, folks.
Yeah.
Different time.
That was the same time that they used tripwires on horses, right? Oh, good times to be an animal in a movie.
I think the I'm going to save that. No, now that I remember before I said, if you had me sit down and make a list of everything I would see in the movies that we would do in this podcast, Warren Oates on a dirt bike would never have ever come up.
That's a really good point.
They're foolish you.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, Warren Oates doing anything what comes to mind? Warren Oates doing.
I honestly, Stripes is the thing. Stripes is the first thing that always comes to mind when I see Warren Oates.
I think Dillinger is the thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was in Dillinger.
Nice. So Dillinger comes to mind, but you're not sure he was in it.
Yeah,
it's fair. It can come to mind. It doesn't mean that he has to be in it. Yeah. He was, but
it comes to mind for me. He's not in it, but
he was in it, so it's okay. But
yeah,
I do think one of the things about this movie that again, where it's just you feel like certain things are going to, I guess, pay off in different ways than they do. Like with the book, you talked about them getting the books from the library and stealing the books. In fact, that whole chunk where it's just they find the note, death mote, whatever, and then they get that, and it's just that the only thing that really succeeded in doing was establishing that they were Satanists. It didn't actually... they didn't need to find that message in any way, shape, or form. They would have been perfectly all right without stealing the books. I thought that they would steal the books, and then the Satanists would be like, oh, yes, we let them steal the books so that we, or whatever, and it would pay off in a different way. And it turns out it just didn't bother paying off.
Yeah. It's funny. You go,
ahead.
Jack.
No, go ahead.
You mentioned the note. So the police have almost gaslighted Peter Fonda and Warren Oates into believing that they saw something. They didn't really see what they thought they saw. Maybe it's all going to be fine. Probably didn't kill this girl. They only sprinkled blood on her. It's a whole thing. They're just weird hippies. And they almost succeed in that. And like, Peter Fonda and Warren Oates are ready to just drive off and go back on their trip. And then the Satanists have left this note that says, "Hey, it all really happened, but don't tell anyone."
Yeah.
Totally throwing out the plan that they had been following up until this point.
And again, this is another perfect example of a movie in the Boogaloo realm where it's just like the police is like, well, I don't think we got enough evidence right there to do anything about this here crime.
I mean, we've got eyewitness testimony and traces of blood, but that's no reason to act on it.
Yeah.
Well, and
a dead animal.
Dog blood. They expected it to be dog blood, is what they did explain that.
They did. Yeah.
But my thing is, one of the things I think that bugged me about this movie is the lead Satan character, whoever who actually kills the woman. We never found out who that was. I was so certain that was supposed to be the police officer, the police
sheriff,
chief.
Yeah.
But we never found out, and I'm like, because that would have made so much sense. And in fact, it was almost too obvious. I'm like, okay, well, you see that coming, but it just never becomes, look, well, that would bring us to talk about the ending, which we won't do yet because we're saving that for scoring. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It like I say, it has it should have all the elements for Boogaloo Classic. It didn't embrace the Boogaloo quite as much as I think it could have. Early on, I think that does hurt the film.
Yeah,
but the third act is pretty damn rocking.
Yeah, it's treading a fine line between being just a little bit more, like an exploitation movie, more so than Boogaloo, but it's not a bad exploitation movie, and that's the thing, right? Like, so it's like you want it to, and they do get to that point, but that first hour, like you talked about, Jim, like because that's basically pretty much what I watched before stopping it for a moment and then coming back. And yeah, that first hour, I'm just like thinking, yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's not a bad movie. But man, I mean, when it kicks into overdrive, it kicks into overdrive.
and it probably is fair to say, I mean, Jack Starrett is a legendary B-movie grindhouse director for films like Cleopatra Jones and Slaughter and things like that. But it is probably more that grindhouse film than that, Boogaloo film, that exploitation film is probably his wheelhouse, right? And we haven't really done a lot of like exploitation films. We generally go right to the real Boogaloo film.
Yeah, well, and when you look at it,
in episode 1 this season.
Yeah, Chopping Mall. It's a perfect example of that Boogaloo moment where it's got the inside jokes, it's got the funny stuff, but then here it's hard. Like there's a real hard edge to this movie, whereas that isn't existing in Chopping Mall. Chopping Mall still has that soft, like, funny, hey, we got killer robots. This is like, we have Satanists, they're going to kill you, they're going to kill your dog. Like, or they're going to drug your dog, and then you're going to you're going to bury it and kill it yourself.
Yeah, and
if that dog was a little bit more likable...
It's true, yeah.
Do you think maybe I'd have more of an emotional attachment by the time he dies?
Well, he's in the movie for like 2 minutes.
I actually signed a breath of relief when that dog finally met his maker.
Peter Fonda was sure upset. I mean, he had quite a ceremony burying him. That's the only time in this whole movie that Peter Fonda looked like he gave a shit at all.
But that's Peter Fonda. His emotional range in movies is not all that wide.
Perhaps he was just too high.
And it was not all that wide here. Yeah, how great is it that they're sitting there talking about it's the hippies, they're on drugs.
Yeah, I know. The irony there.
Taking them to it. It was just, you saw a bunch of hippies. You can't trust them. They're all on drugs. And Peter Fonda's this straight guy, and he's like, well, we saw what we saw, and you can't just blame it on that. It's like, no, those hippies and the drugs, that's the problem. And you're like, that's Peter Fonda. You're saying that.
I'm going to pretend that this is a prequel to Easy Rider, and it was because of the things he saw in this that Captain America's life changed so much.
He managed to successfully make it out of the ending. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but once you see this kind of thing.
Oh yeah. You see those
Can't go
things.
Can't go back to the man's world once you've seen this.
No. Yeah, it's a really unique film. It's one of the higher rated films we've seen as well, and I can see why. On the other hand, I'm confused as to why. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should get the scoring.
Let's score the bejesus out of this thing. All right, every season. No, let's try that again. The Satanists have me under their power. That's the problem. In our search for the ultimate B movie, we rate each film in 5 categories, none of which are objective quality, which may work against Race with the Devil. Our first category is called Schlock Appeal, and we start with Stan.
Oh, Jim, what hath you mote? Yes. Let's see. Again, it's like I said earlier. I think it's that exploitation versus boogaloo. This one's a little less boogaloo, a little more exploitation. I don't think it's a bad movie. I'm gonna give it a 5 based on the back half an hour.
Yeah, I have tried. I've meant to watch this film a whole bunch. I mean, I went through car racing movie. It's festival or phase, and I watched all the movies, and I get to Race the Devil, and it's like, no, I think I'm done. And then I went through a Peter Fonda phase, and I get to Race the Devil. Yeah, no, I don't need it. It'll sit in my collection for a little bit while. And part of that is the title is horrible. It doesn't describe the movie really at all. I mean, you could make a case.
I think it's a great title.
But it didn't intrigue me whatsoever. I don't think it's high on the schlock meter at all. I'm only going to give it a 3.
Ooh, I'm up to a 7. I definitely think that ceremony, which could have given us it could have. Don't get me wrong. Again, they could have embraced the boogaloo more in that ceremony, but still, that ceremony. And then when you get to the point where the snakes and stuff like that show up, and that last third, I think it gets really schlocky, and it shows because it is a small budget movie still, 1.75 million. So I definitely. Plus, it is fun. Some of the action sequences are great, and the car chases and stuff like that. Well, it's not really a race. There's no race. You're right, except for I guess there's a race to get away from the Satanists, which is Race of the Devil, sort of. So I'll stick with a 7. I think that's a good rating for this damn thing.
All right. I think it's a good rating for you for this thing. I agree, but I like the gully of. I mean, the movie's only 92 minutes or something, and like to have 40 of it that's not boogaloo and not schlocky. Is a lot of chit chat in this. A lot of Loretta Swit, getting people coffee. So only a 4 for me on this.
Loretta Swit, what was the point of that?
Oh well, yeah.
Was I guess it's 1975. I guess MASH was on the air.
Yeah, MASH should be on there.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. More heart than budget, and you said 1.5?
1.7.
1.7 million.
1.75 million.
Oh, 1.75. Yeah, don't forget that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what went into that
that's Loretta Swit money right there. That's Laura's money.
Yeah. Well, again, it's interesting because last episode we did Chopping Mall, and that was like 800,000. So now you've basically more than doubled it for this, and yet they don't have a mall. All they have is a really good fucking RV. It's like an RV, and it's an RV. Yeah, it's an RV that's driving around a lot in the middle of nowhere.
How good was that RV? Let me tell you how good that was. They took scenes from this and some of the scenes from this in that RV and used it in an episode of The Fall Guy. Nice. That's how good this RV is.
That's awesome. I mean, there's no question it's a lovely RV with a microwave, and 4-channel stereo audio.
But, don't forget the Browning feature.
And the Browning.
It's got color TV.
Color TV. That's right.
An antenna.
yeah. So the reception's always going to be
and
good.
a browner. It's got a browner.
Yeah.
Microwave and a browner.
Yeah. So it turns out we actually remember all of the features of the RV.
It was a $36,000 RV in 1975. I was like, I don't know what these guys do for a living. One of them seems to race or something like that, but they're loaded. Clearly.
Oh yeah.
They sell and race motorbikes. It was what I gathered. They like custom bikes. I think it's custom bikes.
All I know is that at the very beginning of the movie, Peter Fonda wins the race, and then they spend the whole time talking about how he was too slow.
Yes.
But it was a time trial, so he's trying to get his bike up to speed. So it's not a race, it's a test.
Yeah, but he kicked those other guys' ass, and what's their time trial at?
Not enough. I mean, it's like like in a boxing movie where they put a bunch of chumps in to practice on.
Oh, I see.
So he gets his confidence up by winning, but he's still not happy with the performance of the bike.
Thank God you're here to explain these things to me, Jim.
Okay, so this is great. So last episode we really broke down the mall. So this time we're going to really break down the motorcycle racing time trials. Excellent. But my biggest problem with this movie is the fact that is the fact that for the most part I felt like the actors just kind of phoned it in and didn't actually really give a shit that they were in a movie. Like their expressions almost never changed throughout. Like Warren Oates made a comment about well, if I ever smile again, and it's just like, I'm not completely sure you've smiled yet. So let's throw that one out. The
only time Warren Oates looked like he was really into the film was when he thought that the satanic ritual was an orgy.
Yes.
like he's like, hey, what's that? What are they doing? Oh, look at them. They're taking their clothes off. Look at those beauties. Oh, hey, is there an orgy? And he's like, really? That's like the only time.
Oddly enough, at the beginning of the movie, that's what I thought would get me into the movie too. But really, this one's not jumping out for a heart for me. I'm only going with a 3.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. This is the toughest category for me to score, because on one hand, it's an extremely competent movie. On the other hand, I have no emotional attachment to any of these people. Our last episode, I had more emotional attachment to people who died in the first act.
Yes. Yeah, John Terlesky gave me more than any of these guys did.
Yeah, but it is a competent film. Obviously, somebody cared about making it. Otherwise, it would have bigger problems than it does. But without getting me in the movie, I have to go, maybe the heart isn't there. 4.
I think they made as good a movie as they can. They tried to make a good movie, but it is a movie that, I mean, it was originally, it started to be shot by Lee Frost, another legendary exploitation director. And Jack Starrett came in and replaced him during filming, and they reshot those scenes, though a couple of them are still in there. So anytime that happens, it hurts the more heart than budget, because it's not exactly a passion project for the director. So I'm going to go also with a 4.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of sleepwalking in this film. There's a lot of the drama level is weird in this film. Like at times they're very casual about what's going on. It's really only one of the characters it seems to be, authentically scared. They make a lot of weird choices, like pulling off the road and having a nap at one point, and like they just make some strange choices like that really lower the tension level. I'm only going to go with a 1 on this. Wow. I think it's a work. I think it's just people showed up and paid the rent for a month. What the fuck moments?
Well, yeah, and I know that Jack talked about like a lot of the motivations, I think, being what the fuck, and I absolutely think that's completely fair. Like when you're looking, there's the moment when they're watching the sacrifice, the satanic sacrifice, and you've got some nudity, and then then they're watching behind the fire, and everything's just blurred out. Like, you can't see a damn thing at that point, and it's just like, well, what the fuck is good with that? But this is
blurring
nudity.
was a really odd choice. There's there's like 8 naked women, and then they blur out just the one they're going to sacrifice.
Yeah, I know. It was really strange, but yeah, like their motivations, it's just like it seems like they could have successfully managed to navigate that. Like, okay, so we're sitting there staring through our binoculars. Then Loretta Swit comes out and starts calling, and it's just like, shut up! Shut up! Well, why doesn't one of them, put down the binoculars and go over there and shut her up, as opposed to, but there's nudity, so I gotta watch that, but shut up!
Turn off the light!
Yeah. And then, and just so many moments. You talked about the nap. You talk, there's just all these points where it's just like, well, you know what? Okay, sure. Just had a crazy thing. We've established that it was Satanists, but really, I'm fucking going skiing. No matter what, I'm going skiing.
So true.
We deserve to have a ski trip.
Yeah, I brought this ski pole, one ski pole. I didn't bring
They're on their way to Colorado. This is just a stop on the road.
Yeah.
Every day you got to make a little time for you.
I didn't bring that one ski pole just to kill snakes. No, I brought it to ski. And again, when the snakes come out and they do the single worst job of trying to get rid of the snakes. Like, there's a fucking door. He's already crashed into a tree. I don't understand why it's just like your first instinct isn't either A, vacate the the RV and deal with the snakes like that, or B, when you've got a snake in your hand, toss it out the door, as opposed to attempting to kill the damn thing.
I like that one snake jumped on Peter Fonda's wife at the very beginning she's inside. No, why did the rattlesnakes that you hear constantly during that scene, why do you hear none of that until they show up?
Yeah, I know.
I love
and up like 40 feet.
And I want to make sure the verb's right there. It jumps at her.
Yes.
Oh yeah, like it jumps.
It jumps. That was the best. My favorite Boogaloo thing was the leaping snakes.
Yeah. And and then of course you got cars that explode when they're in midair, which is always an amazing.
I think
beautiful thing.
I think that needs to be broken down a little more there, Stan.
Yeah.
If you can.
No, that's totally fair. So there's this one point where they're driving along in the RV and they realize that they've got a truck in front of them, they've got a tow truck in behind them that they've seen before, and then the truck in front of them stops, and so they crash into it, and then they start this really long car chase scene where like these 3 cars are trying to essentially, I guess they're just trying to push them off the road.
They say they're trying to box them in, which with 3 cars is kind of a strange.
It should work.
3 cars on a 2-lane road. I guess it works.
Yeah. It should have worked, but they did a terrible job of doing it. But but the thing is, I mean, you got them they're pushing people off the road, and he's shooting the shotgun into the exact same location on the truck 3 times.
Yeah, I love that his aggressive thing is to shoot into the broadside of the truck, into the storage area of the truck,
which is obviously empty, as they proved when the truck crashed later. But yeah, so they have this really, and it's an excellent scene. Like there's no doubt it's very action packed and exciting, and they manage to, they manage to eventually push all these vehicles off the road, but one of them goes careening off the side into off the cliff, and then halfway down it's like boom.
It's a bridge. It basically it's going across a bridge. It jumps the side of the bridge. It takes absolutely no damage, then suddenly explodes.
Well, and the thing is, if you look at the angle of the shot that the car was on just before, it could not have jumped the bridge the way it jumped the bridge.
Oh no, no chance.
So like those moments, and then the fact that they leave the vehicle to go out. So they meet this couple and they leave for some reason, like they don't trust them to eat dinner with them in the campsite. So this couple's invited them to eat dinner with them, but then it's okay to go to a bar which has apparently the best country you'll ever find, which it really didn't. That scene right there was probably the most boogaloo for me, because it was just like, okay, so suddenly we're all having a good time dancing and listening to some shitty country music with this couple that you've just met, which obviously creep you out, and obviously there's something wrong with. And then you come back to find out that, okay, the dog's dead, and people are staring at you, so it's like, all right, we got to get going. And so that moment there, that was probably my biggest boogaloo moment. Like this one, I do think it's got a lot of what the fuck, for the simple fact that their decision making is so bad, and when those what the fuck moments show up, they're just fucking ridiculous. So by that token, I am going to give this a 7.
Nice.
I think you highlighted a lot of stuff there.
Well, once I got started,
I noticed a thing or two for WTF on this, but on a whole, I didn't think it was that high compared to some of the movies we've watched. The only thing that really bugged me about this movie is the women didn't have to be in it. We could have had Warren Oates and Peter Fonda in an RV as a gay couple witnessing.
That's gonna happen.
Yeah, not in 1975.
They could have just been deliverancing into. I mean, they could have just been going on a hunting trip or something though. Like they're like the women have, aside from shrieking every once in a while.
Oh god, that snake scene. I thought that was going to break.
Who would have stolen the library book? Is that what you? Yeah, it's fair. That's fair enough. Yeah.
Well, who needed to?
But we already established the library book doesn't matter.
That's right. I mean, who would have translated that note that was already in English and Romans?
So yeah, that was my biggest thing with this movie. But I didn't find anything over the top. They were there. I noticed a thing or two, but on a whole, nothing was big enough to break the movie for me. So I'm only going to go as high as a 4.
Where do I start? So we talk about this ceremony, and they're trying to make it scary, and to me it just came across boogaloo instead. It's so cheesy. I mean, you got all these women walking around naked that you can't really see. You got this guy in a mask that you never really see, but he's somebody. And then all the guys are also there. They have their tops off and capes. Topless men with capes will always be boogaloo, especially.
That's what I'm wearing right now.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I love my cape.
Especially when they decide to run after the RV. And I mean literally run after the RV and jump on it. They manage to jump on it every single time in that scene that they're chasing them. For no reason, all the Satanists are bathed in a red light. Like, just for no reason whatsoever.
Ave Satanis.
That's how you know they're Satanists. Yeah. They're bathed in a red light, and there's two of them trying to break in, and he punches one, and then both are gone. And then one's on top of the roof. I don't know how the hell he got up there. And he chases up on the roof to get him. And like all this different, like crazy stuff is happening. So the entire area that they're in is obviously everybody's in on this. Everybody's a Satanist. Like no matter, they're driving for I don't know how long, but they're still in the neighborhood where the Satanists are and no phone works because of this. And so every single person they meet is a Satanist, which makes me wonder, why the hell did they sell them a shotgun with bullets? Why did they sell them a shotgun that worked? If
they'll sabotage the phone, but not the shotgun.
Yes.
No, we don't carry those.
The big win from the north, yes.
The big win from the north didn't take out the shotguns, I guess.
No. Kill them with. there's the scene where they're sitting there and they get away, and they go off and they camp overnight or whatever, and then the fan is being ruined. Like it's like they've escaped basically for. But by the way, it's winter. They keep on talking about how cold it is, and when they show up at the pool, everybody's in their sunshine shorts and no shirt on, and so they get away from this area that's like this where this pool is and the families are.
Yeah, January.
Yeah, after the dog gets killed, and then they can't start the thing. They can't start their RV because the fan is broke or something. They're like, well, and then they go to look at their bikes and the bike's wheels are all cut up and they're like, well, that's it then. And then they cut to a scene where we're on the road driving, no problem. I'm like, what's going on here? And then there's that ending, which I won't say because I assume, Jim, that you will.
I've lost track.
I like the ending.
Oh, I never gave score, did I? 8.
8. Oh wow. That's a generous a lot of amount of fuck for you. I want to when the thing where the car goes over the guardrail and then explodes. I wrote down it's the old force him onto the guardrail so his truck explodes trick.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Totally fair there.
So yeah, as this film goes on, like I said there's the time where you're not sure that it's not paranoia, and then you find out that they really are still being followed. This like 2 days drive past, outside of the town. I meant to check the map for just how the hell far away from the next town they must have been. Like it's like they said they're 200 miles. And then like a whole day goes by and they're still like 80 miles out.
In the looking up the trivia, I found out where it is, and yeah, they were going not considering they lived in Texas, they were going not the closest place to go to get help.
Well, they're specific about they want a bigger city though. So
yeah, and I'm talking about a bigger city.
That still doesn't help them.
They did not go to the closest big city.
So they escape from the big car chase. Like the Satanists have now tried to stop them at a roadblock. They have tried to force them off the road. They have won, and they just pick a random spot in the middle of nowhere because that's worked so well up till now to stop and stay. And about 5 minutes after they stop, a ring of fire shows up around the RV, and the Satanists start moving in and fade to black.
And of course, that's when you see that it is the sheriff, right?
It is the sheriff.
There.
Yeah, you see several people that have appeared previously in the film.
He's one. Yeah, he's one of them. You don't know if he's the guy in the mask at the beginning. You just know he's one of them.
He's not. Well, if you check the credits, that is not. There is a credited person for the lead Satanist, and it's not him.
Okay.
But yes, there is no payoff to that part. I hope you weren't waiting for a reveal, like a pull the mask off, and it was the guy the security guard at the amusement park, and he would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for Peter Fonda's dog. So
I'll get you and your little dog too.
See, I mean, you could say like it's like it's convenient that they were able to find them, but the Satanists did curse them with a ruin. So I think it just pays off that the moral of this movie is that Satan is real and you should worship him because everything works out for the Satanists.
It's true. It's like a lot of them get killed and nobody ever shows up. They can't, like a lot of them get killed in this movie. But yeah, you're right. If they're just sitting there in the middle of the field and you're like, okay, maybe they got away, and you're waiting for the next thing, and all of a sudden a ring of fire shows up and the Satanists show up and it cuts. I guess they're not going to fight back anymore.
Yeah, but the alternative to that scene is to have the good guys get away, and that wouldn't have been any better of an ending.
Well, maybe they did
we
get
made
away.
it to the city.
We don't know what happened to them. They don't. Nothing. Like
they did get away.
They're dead.
Because Peter Fonda became Captain America.
That's right. Yeah.
So see, he got away.
There was there's one of those little subtle what the fucky moments. So you mentioned the honky tonk bar. with the terrible country music. But there's a dude with a cowboy hat and a big bushy beard, an older guy, smoke cigarette hanging out of his mouth. It's kind of creepy looking dude. He's not one of the ones that they think is staring at them or anything, but he's clapping not even remotely close to the tempo of the song. And he's not just on the 1 and the 3s. He's on the 1, the 3, and the 4, and then the 1 and the 3. And then a couple of his new ones. And he's loving the music, but I don't know what he's hearing that I'm not. I'm only getting to 5 though. Memorable moments.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know what I'm going to remember from this, but I do know that I will remember the big win from up north. Every time there's like phone troubles, I'll be like, must be a big win from up north.
Big wind up north.
That'll definitely come back. I think there's, like the Satanist thing. That's it's great. Those kind of things are memorable. It's seeing Peter Fonda. That there's some little moments that I'm sure that I'll bring up, but it's not going to be a big time one. So I'll go with a 4.
Yeah, the end. 3.
I think that those the two key chase sequences right after right after they get boxed in, that one, and right after they discovered the ceremony, I think those were incredibly exciting. And I certainly will never forget that ending because it was what? So I got a 6.
And there's a couple of lines that I really dug in this film. I do like the big wind from up north. I like when Warren Oates says he's getting too old for this shit, which would subsequently be stolen for Lethal Weapon. I always like to find these little the progenitors, the where the big times get it from. I think my favorite, the thing I'm going to remember aside from the big window from north, is the sheriff's trying to convince them they didn't really see someone get killed. What they saw, he said, there was one time we saw this thing where they killed a cat and they let the cat bleed over the woman, so like there was blood on her, but they didn't stab her or anything. It was like it's just hippies being hippies.
Fucking
and Peter Fonda says this time they ran out of cats.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a good one. Yeah,
it's a good line. I'm still only going to give it a 3 because I think this is going to disappear from my mind fast. Crazy concept is our last category.
See, I've seen a lot of movies that involve like that. Okay, so people see something that they shouldn't see, and then especially Satanists. And then they wind up having to kind of escape them, or they're stuck in a city where it's just like, or a town where everybody's in on the horror, and so that by itself is not a crazy concept. I like what they did with some of it, but this is seems like a pretty standard exploitation movie to me. Again, I'm just going with a 3.
Yeah, in some ways, this is sort of a stereotypical Peter Fonda movie. You could pitch it as Peter Fonda and Buddy on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And you got your minimal budget, and especially since during this time period, I think Peter Fonda liked acting for just a piece of the profits, because these movies had low budgets and then they go to the drive-ins and there was nowhere to hide the money. Unlike a big production.
And it ended up doing 12 million in box office. So
nice.
Could do a profit.
he liked making his money on the back end. So it makes sense the way this was filmed, that they didn't break any new ground really. I mean, it was a little strange for the Satanists and having it take place in RV, but not crazy at all too.
Yeah, see,
I've given low scores on this one, on this entire movie, yet I really kind of enjoyed it.
Well, that's the thing is, this is one of those ones that will score worse in a KFEB scoring than it would in a quality of film scoring. Because we're not judging on, as we say, objective quality. And not judging on objective quality this is one of the films that gets hurt by it. It's a weird thing because everything you say, it's like, it's got a level of craziness, but not that much. and yet when you watch it, I can't help but feel like it's like I can't. It's like porn. I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it, and that's how I feel about the crazy level of this movie. So I got a 6.
Nice. The there's a bit where all of they're at the pool and she thinks everyone's watching them, and it like thinks she's being observed by everyone around. She gets really paranoid. I wrote down that all the people are so creepy. They look like old people of the corn.
Yeah.
It's not germane, but it's just I didn't use the line yet. And,
So you gotta
There's also the scene where it shows everybody in the pool, including the wives, swimming in it, and then shows them getting out of the trailer or the RV with Peter Fonda and Warren Oates. So there's also that.
It's a goofy little film. Only a 3 for me as well, and Nick and I are tied here with low scores. All right, and every season we have 6 secret modifiers. This film has 3 of them. It does get a -1 for what we call work for hire. Jack Starrett was not the original director, so obviously not a passion project. It does get our first -1 for what we're calling the legendary handicap that we are. Because we have chosen films from 8 great directors of B movies, we expect higher scores, and if you come in under a certain score, you do get a -1 just to kick you down a little further.
Yeah.
It does, however, get a +1 back for having a cameo of Jack Starrett, who is the gas station attendant,
and himself a fine actor, probably best known for his role in Blazing Saddles.
Oh yes, and First Blood, he was one of the main.
He was. Yeah.
But that only brings us to a 41.5 out of 100. So bottom 10, tied with Shoot Fighter Fight to the Death.
That's interesting.
And again, it's one of those things also where you're trying to find that gem. Trying so hard to find the gem. Actually heard it in this time. Could have chosen Cleopatra Jones, I'm sure, from him, and it would have scored better.
Yes. Oh, absolutely, it would have.
But we've poster for that movie scores better than
that's right.
On our Boogaloo scale.
This movie has great posters. I will give it that. But that's the thing. Again, is I knew it may not be his most. I knew there was. We've all seen Cleopatra Jones, or at least I assume all of us have. At least most of us probably have, right? So
I have.
Yeah, and I know Nick has. Have you, Jim?
I have not. I
thought you should.
Yeah, I think it's on Tubi. So
you should. It is on Tubi, I do believe. Like every good movie, not this
Did
one.
he do the sequel? Like Cleopatra Jones and the Lost City of Gold. Did he do that one?
No, I do not
really
believe
title,
he
is it?
did. Actually,
Yeah.
He also did not do the Slaughter sequel with Jim Brown that came out immediately after too. So
it's the Casino of Gold. Sorry.
Casino of Gold. Nice. It is not on Tubi. I'm gonna have to hunt further.
Too damn bad. But yeah, I mean that would have been the easy thing to do. But you take a shot sometimes.
All right.
Okay, well, that wraps up Race with the Devil, and so from Race with the Devil, we move to Deadly Prey, and that one's from David A. Pryor. So this one's that 80s actioner that I think is going to fit nicely into this season. But again, there's no question that we're moving in all different directions this season, and it's a lot of fun. Okay, Jim, tell the folks where to find us, please.
All right, we are on Instagram at Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo, and you can also find our podcast sponsors, WeTalkPodcast.com, and that is the home of the Octagon, which is our ongoing list of our search for the ultimate B movie, and they have a Twitter, they have a Facebook, and if you please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app and or on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, we're close to being able to make some money off this thing. You guys just support us a little bit.
That's right.
Tell some
subscribe.
people about
Actually,
it.
subscribe on YouTube. Whether what you can do is subscribe, hit play, leave the room. That's fine. You've heard the episode. You've heard it on your podcast app. You only need to listen to every episode. Once before you watch the movie. Then you watch the movie. Then you listen to it again. You get more depth, more laughs every time. But subscribe. That's really important.
It's a good that's our public service announcement for ourselves.
No pressure.
No pressure. Yeah.
Just
We
saying,
need the money.
if you like the show and want to hear more of the show, do all of those things, and let us know if we should launch a Patreon, because if you want to give us more money,
Yeah, we will happily take it. Yes.
I want to make it clear that if there's any money on the table,
Well, because right now, if there was a category for more heart than budget, as far as this goes, we are at over 100 out of 10. So, yes. Well, Season 8, simply the BS carries on the Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo, and I know that it's going to be a wild and crazy ride until we get to the end of the season. Hell, it's going to be a wild and crazy ride until we die, and that's what'll end this whole experiment of ours. But I don't think anybody else has anything left to say, so we're going to wrap it up. So for Jim, and for Jack, and for Nick, I am your host, 8th Dan Stanadu. Thanks for listening to the Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo!
Two men on a dream vacation.
What the hell are they doing? I sure think they killed her. Back! Frank, they've seen us.
And get trapped in an unbelievable nightmare.
Turn off the light!
Why? What's wrong? What are you guys up to? What?
20th Century Fox presents Race the Devil.
We saw somebody murdered.
What?
Some sort of ritual across the river. A girl got stabbed. They're chasing us.
Starring Peter Fonda and Warren Oates. There was nowhere they could hide.
Alice, look what was stuck to the back window. It's some kind of message. Witchcraft.
Witches!
There was no one they could trust.
I killed my dog.
Well, did anybody hear anything? Didn't anybody see anything? Go on with your trip. Have a good time. Leave this up to me.
There was nothing they could do.
They followed us all the way from Bandera. They're here right now watching us.
But run. And fight.
Shoot him, Frank!
And race with the devil.
There's somebody on top!
Frank has got to leave!
We gotta stay in here! Don't go up!
Peter Fonda, Warren Oates, Loretta Swit, Lara Parker. Race with the devil. When you race with the devil, you'd better be faster than hell.